All right. I have my hubby here. This is Dave. Say hi to Dave.
Hi.
Dave said hi to you. Okay, we have some questions for Dave. So we'll start with him first so he can go back to doing whatever he was doing. What were you doing?
I was doing Duolingo. Spanish.
So tell him, yeah. Dave is learning, well, relearning, because he speaks fairly fluent Spanish and you're working on German as well.
Yes.
Yes. I don't do either. I don't even touch those. I would say something and embarrass myself or cause an international incident, so I don't do that. So I'm going to ask the questions that you all ask for Dave. So here we go. Do you have any special places that you like to stop on road trips?
Maybe music shops.
You like music shops? And you like to stop at like pawn shops and antique places?
Yeah.
Yes. And just to clarify, our yarn I called it the yarn vacation. What I didn't share was that as many shops as I was going into, Dave was going into shops he likes to. So he really isn't just my chauffeur. And reading. Yes, you like to read in between stops. So when we would go to different stops, he would go into a store he was interested in and I would sit in the car and knit. And then when I would go into a yarn shop, he would sit in the car and read. Or in one case, you filmed for me. You filmed a harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you stopped and talked to some people.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
They were from Newport.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We just answered the next one. Do you go into the yarn shop with me? Not
when you forget things. Yes.
Right. Yes. 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 When at one of the stops, he came running in with my camera because I forgot it, and or if you have to use the restroom.
Yeah, that time too.
Yeah. Yeah. We've done that. What do you do while I'm shopping? I think we said that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read, or I'm going to another shop.
Yeah. Sometimes at the same time. Do we share the driving?
No.
No. He drives and I nagavate. I don't nag, do I?
No.
I just carefully instruct in the way that we should go. Yeah. Or I go, ah! And scare you. Yeah.
On occasion.
That explains the gray hair. Huh? So, how do I get you to go along shopping?
We kind of both go together.
Right, because we both are going shopping. He's just shopping for different stuff than I am. Do you knit?
No.
No. I've tried. I really have. I have tried. He has no interest in knitting. Have I nominated my hubby for sainthood?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Now we have some general vacation questions that we can answer together. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Do we ever vacation in the South?
Once in a while.
Yeah. We went to the Outer Banks with our kids 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
We used to go down to Williamsburg a lot.
Yeah, we used to go to Williamsburg a lot. And
we went to Fredericksburg.
Yeah, we've been Fredericksburg. We can get there in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, about 2.5 hours.
Something like that from where we're at now. We just shoot down Route 15 because we live not too far from 15. So, yeah, we've gone there, and we went when our kids were little. We drove all the way down to Florida, and took went to see my grandparents while they were still living. And when we dropped our son off to college in Pensacola, Florida, we drove up through the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went to Pigeon Forge and
Gatlinburg. We stayed in Gatlinburg, and we
during
hit
4th of July. That's the worst.
Never go to Gatlinburg on the 4th of July. Yeah, we had a hotel, which was fine, but then we decided it was time to go out and have some dinner. And when we went to go out and get dinner, we're adjusting.
Yeah.
There we go. That's a little better. We went to go out to dinner, and we picked the one place. We said, we're in this line. It took us 40 minutes.
The old mill.
Yes, we were going to go eat at the old mill. It took us 40 minutes, and we were in bumper-to-bumper traffic between Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. No,
the line was too big.
We were in the line to get there, and both of us laughed and said, "Watch the fireworks be going off right where we're headed.
And they were.
They were, yeah, like right outside the parking lot. So everybody that was on the way to Pigeon Forge was headed to the same place we were. We ended up at 9 o'clock at night eating at a Sizzler or something like that. It was like
Sizzler.
Yeah, it was like the only place we could find open after waiting. And when we finally got to the old mill and found a parking place, they were like, "Oh, it's going to be an hour and a half wait before you could eat." And we were starving because we had driven 10 hours that day. So yeah, so that's our extent of having gone to the south. Yeah. Do we plan which shops before, and have I been to them before? I do plan, once we know where we're going on vacation, then I go online and I look for shops for myself and I look for shops for Dave. And then we kind of narrow it down to pick out which shops sound like something that is worth looking at. And we go from there. Actually, I have a video that I put out on vacation planning. I'll put a little I. You'll see a little tiny letter I. If you click on that, it'll take you a link to that video where it talks about vacation planning on a shoestring, because we try to do it as cheaply as possible. So yes, have I been to these shops before? A couple of the shops that I went to, I had been to last year when we went through that direction. We went to Maine last year, but we came back down through Rhode Island and Connecticut, and when we did, a couple of those stores I had been in before. How often do we take our vacations? Once a year.
Usually once a year.
Yeah, once a year. We go away for like 7 or 8 days, usually. And on that note, I wanted to say something too, as far as how do we pay for our vacation? We actually, Dave's retired and I only work part-time. So we actually vacation on a budget. We do plan. Dave's good with he does all our budgeting. He keeps track of it on the computer. So we actually keep money aside for vacation to plan for it. Yeah. And I use TripAdvisor and I book all of our hotels like online months in advance because it's cheaper the further in advance that you book them. We use lots of coupons, even for local restaurants. If you go to restaurant.com and you put the city in you're going to stay in, you can get them pretty cheap. I think I spent $9 and got $45 worth of gift certificates. So it was like the one place you had to spend $30. Well, the entrees were $15 a piece, so it wasn't hard to spend $30. And we got $15 off, but the gift certificate, because they were running a special on restaurant.com, the gift certificate only ended up costing me $3. So I spent $3 and got $15 off of our meal. So I used 4 coupons like that when we were on vacation. So, yeah, and we also had a yard sale, a yard sale a couple months ago, and we set that money aside to put towards vacation. And some of my earnings from my Ravelry patterns actually helped pay for some of the hotel too. So anyway, so we do our trip on a shoestring basically. Let's see. How do we pick where to stay when we travel? I kind of answered that. I go on TripAdvisor. I never stay at the cheapest hotel. We learned that lesson.
No,
yes.
Bad mistake.
Yes, because it's not always a good thing. The rent by the hour type of people tend to stay in the cheap hotels, and
yes,
we stayed in one hotel, and
you had some interesting.
I got more of an education than I ever wanted to have, because the walls were really thin. So we've kind of learned our lesson not to pick the cheapest, but like the next step up. And then I just look at the reviews and make sure they've got good reviews. And I also check bedbug reports and bedbug registry, because especially here on the East Coast, between the Washington, D.C. and Boston corridor, they have a lot of problems with bedbugs. And that's one souvenir I don't want to bring home with us. So,
No, we have enough pets.
Yeah, we don't need to have any more. Were the leaves changing when we were up there?
Not this time.
No. In fact, I watched Must Love Yarn, which is a podcast that comes out of Burlington, Vermont. And usually the colors up in Vermont are really gorgeous because they have so many maple trees. But they were even saying that it was hitting the tourist industry this year because it's been so hot and they haven't had the rain, that the leaves are pretty much just turning brown and falling off.
Yeah, the one year we went up there, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Between New York State and Vermont.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
But, and we usually tend to go in the fall because we like to look at the leaves. But yeah, we didn't see anything. And I mean, it's still hot here. I mean, we just came back from eating dinner and it was like 6:30 at night and it was 84 degrees, I think, in the car. That's what it said.
Like that,
yeah. Do we do this every year? We do go on vacation every year. It doesn't always turn into quite as much of a yarn vacation. You know, it depends on where we're going and whether there's lots of shops to see. Was this trip specifically to buy yarn? No. Nope, we kind of pick where we're going to go. I usually do all the vacation planning, and he'll kind of give me some ideas, and I'll get some ideas. We'll put them together and decide where we want to go, and then I take off with the planning from them. Did I find all the yarn shops before I started the trip? Yes. I went online. You can go to Sweater Babe. You can also go to Ravelry, and there's another one, I think it's called Knit Map, that you can go on and type in road trip or whatever, put the state, and you can search for the yarn shops by state. What is your favorite food on vacation that we never eat at home?
I like the way they make clams up north with the full. They have the full. Most people don't like them because they want just the strips, but they're whole belly clams. You like the whole belly clams, yes.
And I like the shrimp when you go up north. It's bigger than popcorn shrimp, but it's smaller than your butterfly shrimp. And it's real sweet because the colder the water, the deeper they have to go to get the shrimp, and it makes the meats sweeter. That's why Maine lobster is so like sought after or whatever, because the meat is sweeter.
And you can have lobster.
Yeah, and we don't like lobster. We went to Maine a couple years ago and ordered lobster just to say yes, we ate it.
Right in Camden.
Yes, we ate in Camden, right on the water. I mean, it's like we picked the lobster and they threw it in the pot. Yeah. They handed it to me, put it on my plate, and I said, it looks like a cockroach crawled onto my plate. And I was like, the waitress said, I just washed my hands. You want me to show you what to do with it? I was like, yeah, go for it. So she like cracked it open, said, eat this part, and then I'll come back and show you the next part. They left you to fend for yourself, didn't they?
Well, I just watched what she did.
Yeah. When they got to the part of poking the eyeballs out and pushing the meat out through the back, I went, no, I think I'm done. I'll just eat the tail and the legs, and that was enough. And yeah, didn't care for lobster. It's not like it tasted nasty or anything. No, it's just the whole idea of yanking an old claw out of your mouth, and it's still in the shape of the claw. It was
I just don't care for the meat.
Yeah, I don't know. It was not my cup of tea, put it that way. If it's in stuff, it's okay. But I don't like it like plain. Have we eaten at any interesting places that are local and not a chain? We try to.
Yeah, as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean this trip, Newport was kind of, a lot of the little local places were really pricey because it's a big tourist place. Yeah. So we did eat a couple lunches at Burger King, but I had a
hot dog.
Yes, we did eat one time. That was in Cranston, just outside of Providence. We had hot dogs at, in fact, it was in one of the videos. It was Spike's Junkyard Dogs, and they were pretty good hot dogs.
Yeah, very good.
They were
very good people, too.
Yeah, the people, they were really nice, because I said, can I take some pictures? And they were like, sure. And so, it was good, and the hot dogs were good. And we like hot dogs. We've tried hot dogs in Connecticut. Connecticut has lots of hot dog places. Around here, we don't have too many.
There's some, but not near as much. Yeah.
So we've gone to several Connecticut hot dog places. Not so much in Rhode Island. That was the only one that we've gone to there.
But most of the time was in Connecticut.
Yeah, we went to one place one time. They had these chili dogs. It was called Swanky Frank's.
Oh my!
And we said, "Is the chili hot?" And she's like, "Well, I like it. It's got a little bit of a bite to it." It burned my lips. It was so spicy hot. I couldn't deal with it.
It was definitely a 5-alarmer.
Yeah, and we ate at Capitol Lunch one time.
That was okay.
That was really good. That was down in New Britain, Connecticut. And then we've stopped a couple times in Fairfield at Raleigh's hot dogs. Yeah, those were really good.
Yeah, and we ate the other place.
Yeah, we tried the Super Duper Weenie, which everybody talks. The relish was, I mean, well, what they called chili was more like relish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't care for it that much. There was lots of people there.
Mm-hmm.
We had to find a spot. Yeah, there was a big long line, but I didn't care for it. I think my favorite was the one in New Britain or the one in Fairfield, the Raleigh's hot dogs. How do we decide where to go? We already answered that one. Do waves crashing at night scare me? No.
Remember it was at Bailey Island?
Yeah, we stayed in Bailey Island in Maine one time, and a storm came up, and the hotel we were staying on was like right on the water. And we could hear the waves crashing. I mean, when the storm came through, I mean, it like knocked all their lawn furniture over and everything. But I enjoyed hearing the power of the waves. I'm not a beach person. I mean, there's like no way this body's getting in a swimsuit on a public beach. Yeah. The Save the Whale people could possibly show up to try to help me out. It's like, no. No, not going to do that. So anyway, but I like sitting like on the rocks on rocky beaches. I like watching the waves crash on rocky beaches.
You like salt glass?
Sea glass. Yeah, I like to collect sea glass. So let's see, where are we at here? Would we like to live during the Gilded Age?
I don't think so.
We'd probably be the servants. That would not be good. No. I mean, if I was living in the upstairs part of the house, maybe I'd like to vacation there. That would be nice. Do people still live in the mansions? Not the ones that are open to the public. Yeah. There are some mansions that are there that people are still living in, but they're not as big. Some of the ones I showed in the pictures, they are big houses, but they're not.
They're like a municipal building.
Yeah, they're not like the mansions that we went into. And it was interesting. The
mansions we went into were like a
big municipal building. Yeah. The mansion that we actually were in this time only had 2 owners. The original family, the Berwins, didn't have any children. Their 4 nieces visited there a lot, or they raised them. I wasn't quite sure over that, but the nieces were there a lot. And then they later brought their children and grandchildren and stuff there. But Mrs. Berwind died in 1922, and her husband died in 1935. Well, after his wife died, Mr. Berwind asked his younger sister to come and stay at the mansion to serve as his hostess. And so she lived there until after his death, and because they had no children, he actually left the house to her. And she lived in that house until 1962 when she died, and that's when it was turned over to the historical preservation. So it only actually had 2 owners. And from what I understand, the lady, her name was Miss Julia. That was his younger sister. And she like scandalized everybody, I guess, in the 1920s because she liked to drive a car, and every day she went out for her ride through Newport in her car, and women didn't drive back then, so that was considered scandalous. But she would have the school children over for milk and cookies over at the mansion. So, I mean, it was a happy home. I mean, it was a little more, I think it was a little more homey maybe than the Breakers, The Breakers is almost twice the size of the one we were in. I mean, it's absolutely gigantic, and it's right on the ocean. I think it's a prettier house, the Breakers. Did you like that one better than the Elms?
I like the location of it.
Yeah.
Because you face the Connecticut River there.
No, you were right out on Narragansett Bay.
Oh, Narragansett Bay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think the Breakers was prettier inside, but neither of them were someplace where you felt like you could take your shoes off and put your feet up on furniture.
I like the big marble tub. And they said it took 3 baths to warm it up.
Yeah, because the cold would conduct with the marble. Yeah. Which room was our favorite?
Hard to say.
I liked the kitchen. I liked the cabinets that were in there.
I like the man's. Now I think about the man's room. What else? Chinese. They had all the Chinese art.
Oh, okay. That was the morning room.
Was it the morning room?
The morning room. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was a toss-up. I liked the kitchen because I liked the cabinets and stuff. I just thought it was pretty. I mean, it was more homey. It was. But I also liked, if I had to pick one of the fancy rooms, it would be Mrs. Berwin's bedroom, because It was more cozy. I mean, it had like some carpet laid on the floor, and there was some comfy, like, chairs and stuff. It was definitely more lived in looking than some of the other rooms in the place. Let's see. The butterflies, the monarch butterflies. Somebody made a comment about those. They were all, it was like, I mean, it was just that one spot that we saw them. It was right at the tip of Newport. We took an ocean drive, which it drives all along the coast that goes around Newport. And that's where I filmed some of the ocean scenes. And that's where the monarch butterflies were. And they were like everywhere. And then I looked it up, and it was part of their migration path or whatever. And we just happened to hit it when they were migrating south for the winter. So, but yeah, they were all over the place. And I kept trying to film them, but they were so tiny that, it's like by the time I catch them in the lens, they'd be gone. So I finally grabbed my other camera and just took pictures of them. How many servants did the elms have? He said he thought it was 40?
I thought it was like 42 or 43.
Had to be something like that. And the grounds were really pretty too, but we didn't do a whole lot of pictures out there because there was a wedding going on at the time.
Yeah.
There actually is some sunken gardens, which is where the wedding was going on at. And there was a gazebo and some stables. But like I said, they said you could walk down there, but I would have felt like really funny, excuse me.
They were by the gazebo.
Yeah, they were, and the stables were like beyond that. So, yeah, I didn't want to get in the middle of somebody's wedding, so we kind of skipped out on that. Would we want to live in one of the mansions?
Not really.
No, maybe the child's playhouse. At the Breakers, which is one we went into last time, they have a children's playhouse that's the size of a rancher, like here in the U.S. I mean, it was, what'd you say, probably about 1,000 square foot? Probably.
Pretty good size.
Yeah. I mean, and that was the child's playhouse. I would have fit better there in the child's playhouse. And was the seafood delicious?
Yes.
Yes. Liked the seafood. The Mexican restaurant was okay. Was a lot. I mean, it was a lot. We actually took some back to the hotel, and thankfully we had a microwave and a refrigerator, and we nuked some later the next night. So let's see. We have one other question that's kind of a general question for the two of us, and that is, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. It's Yoke. It looks like, for us in the U.S., it looks like joke, but you were saying you think it's probably, the J is probably
Germanic,
pronounced.
yeah, from the German.
It's from Netherlands, so it's maybe a Y.
It might be like a
Yoke.
Y. Pronounced
Yeah.
with a Y.
So I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but she said that most of the children in the Netherlands, because of the amount of water that's around, they get swimming lessons. Do U.S. children have swimming lessons? They are. Yeah, they have them, but it's not.
It's not. They're not forced to do it. It's a choice.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, some kids take it, but it's not something that would be
mandatory.
Right, and it's not something that a lot of people would maybe do. I mean, more kids are like not so much into swimming. Yeah, I mean, our kids never had swimming lessons. We just taught them. We had a pool. I mean, we didn't have a pool where we lived when our children were little. We were in a townhouse that was right across the street from a community pool, and so we would go over there and swim every day. So we kind of taught our kids how to swim there. So that is the questions I have for Dave. A couple things about us you maybe don't know that wasn't in our questions here. We've been married for how many years, dear?
32. No, 35.
I was going to say, yes, 35. It'll be 36 in February. I was a child bride. Yeah. Now, our children are both the same age right now. We have a daughter and a son. Our daughter's the older, but they're 10.5 months apart. So for 6 weeks of the year, they're the same age. And we're in that 6 weeks little section right now. So both of our kids right now are 34. Our son just turned 34, and our daughter doesn't turn 35 till the end of this month. Well, actually, I guess about 2 weeks from now. So we have 11 grandchildren, and we play musical instruments. We try to sing. Tell them what you play.
A mandolin and a guitar.
And I play a guitar and a banjo. Somebody has to. So, yeah. You used to be a construction inspector before you retired. And before I worked for the library, well, I was home for quite a few years because we homeschooled our children from middle school until they went off to college. And I actually wrote a book on homeschooling that's for sale in some places still, I guess. But before that, I was a nurse. I was a licensed practical nurse. And I didn't like it. I was one of those weird people that would prefer to do the paperwork. So, yeah. So I worked as a charge nurse in a nursing home for a couple of years. And then we homeschooled, or before we homeschooled, I worked in my kids' school as a school nurse for a couple of years. And then we homeschooled, and I was home with them until they went to college. And then I went to work with the library after that to help with tuition, because we had 2 kids in college at the same time. So, I guess that's it for us. And I'll be back in a couple minutes with the questions about me as far as knitting. They're knitting related questions. And to show our pooch. So, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, we are back with the puppy. I keep calling her a puppy, but she's 6 years old. So here is Cricket. Cricket is part Chihuahua and part some kind of terrier, we're not sure. She's a true pound puppy. We actually got her from, she's watching my husband because behind the camera, he's getting something in the kitchen and her ears are up because she knows there's food involved. So, yeah, we got her from the Humane Society. She was a stray. She was found wandering in a nearby town. And so the Humane Society kept her for like 2 weeks in hopes that somebody would claim her. And when nobody did, I was waiting in line. I actually waited in the parking lot for 2 hours on the day that I knew she was coming up for adoption. So I would be the first, because it's first come, first serve. So I wanted to be the first one there. So I got there at like 7 in the morning and waited till 9 for them to open so I could get our little pooch. And one of the questions was, does it take her long to readjust to home after she's been at my parents' house? Because my parents are her grandma and grandpa. They puppy sit her when we were gone. And she gets slightly spoiled rotten. My daughter calls her a chihuahua, and you can kind of see why. She's a little chubby, like her mommy. We won't talk about your weight. But anyway, yeah, my mom spoils her rotten. She warms up her food. If it's canned dog food and it's been in the refrigerator, my mom nukes it for a few minutes or for a few seconds so that it's warm. And then she puts a little blob, a dash of cottage cheese with it. Yeah, when she comes home, she's very disappointed at the dog food that we give her because I don't warm her doggy food up. So, yeah, she's our spoiled fur baby. But that was, I think, the questions we had with the puppy. And now some other knitting questions. And I'll try to run through these fast because I'm already like over a half an hour and I haven't even talked about my knitting stuff for this week. So, how long have I been knitting? I first learned to knit and crochet when I was in the Girl Scouts. I think I was like 8 years old. And one of the merit badges was crafting. And so my mom taught me how to crochet and the very basics. I mean, all I knew how to do was a garter stitch. And I didn't do it really well. When I first started as a kid trying to knit, I tended to knit in triangles with holes because I either increased or decreased without realizing it and did yarn overs without realizing it or dropped stitches. And so I mostly crocheted at that point, but my experience with crocheting is, for the most part, granny squares. Am I a self-taught knitter? A little of both. I had a lady, when I first started as an adult getting back into knitting, that was about 20 years ago. At that time, I only knew garter stitch. I didn't know how to do purl or anything else. And there was a lady at our church who actually worked for a yarn place that's since gone out of business. I mean, they had spinning lessons and weaving lessons and everything. It was really a cool place. And she kind of took me under wing and taught me some of the basics, or I would go home and learn how to do different things, and then I would go into her and ask questions. And at the time where I was working in the library system, there were several knitters that were very good, and I would ask them questions. In fact, one lady who has since passed away actually was a master knitter, I think she had to have been in her 70s at the time. She used to knit the samples that were shown for some of the knitting magazines. So I would go into her and go, Teresa, help, and she would show me how to do different things. And the self-taught part, I would get videos out from the library. This was before DVDs. I would get videos out from the library, and I would look at those and learn how to do. That's how I learned to do my first pair of socks, was watching a video. So it's a little bit of both. Do I usually just buy one skein of yarn when I go to these yarn shops? Yes. Because hand dyed, when I was looking at some of the shops on this vacation, I was looking specifically for local hand dyed stuff, or things I couldn't get at my local yarn shop. So a lot of times that tends to be a little pricey. It can run anywhere from maybe $22 to $28 a skein. So I'm not going to buy like a whole bunch of that. I tend to use it more as an accent piece. So I'll use some cheaper yarns that might be solids and then just accent it with some of the hand dyed. Do I knit for Dave? No, I don't actually. I've offered to, but he's very warm-blooded. He doesn't wear sweaters. He has a couple of sweaters that people have given him and they hang in the closet. He just never wears them. And so no, I've never knit for Dave. I think I maybe made him a hat one time or something back when he was working, because he was outside, and I think I maybe made him a hat at one point. But otherwise, no, because he's too hot to wear, he gets too hot to wear knitwear. Where is my favorite place to knit? Most of the time I'm sitting in my living room knitting and watching YouTube videos at the same time. But if I had to pick a place, it would be on a nice rocky coast someplace, watching the waves come in and knitting away. Do I purchase yarn with a project in mind or just what catches my eye? Most of the time it's just what catches my eye, because like I said, I'm only going to buy maybe a skein of it, because if I'm going to buy other yarns, I get them from my local yarn store, or I'll mix them with a solid or something that's a little bit cheaper. Do I knit kids' sweaters with cables? I have. When we first started having grandchildren, I started making them each a sweater. And we now have 11 grandchildren, so no, I don't make sweaters anymore. But I have made a baby blanket for each of the grandchildren as they were born. But I've never gotten into a pink one. We have two girls and 9 boys. And my daughter, her first baby was the girl, and she didn't get a sonogram. Well, she had sonograms, but she didn't want to know what it was. She wanted to be surprised. So, of course, I couldn't knit a pink one for that granddaughter, because we didn't know until she was born that she was going to be a girl. So she got a yellow one. And then she's had 6 boys since then, because my daughter has 7 children. My son has 4 children, one of which is a girl. But they don't do sonograms. She does home births, and so we never know ahead of time what she's going to have. So this last time, my daughter-in-law even said, why don't you wait and do the blanket after the baby's born, and that way if it's pink, I could knit something pink. But it was boy. They have 1 girl and 3 boys. So, yeah, so I knit baby blankets for all of my grandchildren and some of my nieces and nephews. Did I get what I was looking for, and were there any good deals? I did get most of what I was looking for, except I wanted to go into Peter Patch's. That's that warehouse place that is up in Cranston outside of Providence, and they were closed for some reason. There was a note tacked to the door that they were closed, and I never did get in there. And they usually have really good deals. So, that's where I had hoped to get some cotton yarn. They were running cones of cotton yarn, like 3,200 yards for $5, and it was in natural colors, and that's what I wanted to, get to practice dyeing yarn with. But it was closed, so I couldn't get in there. Which skein will I start with? I actually have started, which you've watched the video, so the beginning part of the video, so you've already seen what I've gotten started on, and that's mainly because the fall is eventually coming. I'm hoping our temperatures cool down, and so because it's fall colors, I wanted to be able to wear that this year. Do I get car sick while I'm knitting in the car? Not as long as I can look up and down. Most of the time, if I knit, I don't do a difficult pattern. I'm not going to do something with a bunch of cable stitches and things like that if I'm in the car, because then I will get car sick. If I have to try to juggle a pattern on my lap and, look down a lot. But as long as, most of the time it's pretty basic what I choose to take with me in the car. So, no, I'm not even watching what I'm knitting most of the time. I just have to occasionally look down. Let's see. Do I prefer DPNs or circulars? Circulars. I'm DPN challenged. I tend to end up with all the stitches on one needle. I don't know why. I forget to rotate. I'm not an ambidextrous knitter, I guess. What age did I learn to knit? That one I already said. What is my favorite project that I have completed? And that would be a blue shawl. It is a Faroese shawl, and I've showed it on the podcast before. It's kind of a denim color, and it's a cotton. And the reason I like it is because the shape of it, and this would go along with one of the other questions, what's my favorite shape shawl? It is kind of a triangular, but it has a little bit of a collar to it. So as a result, it stays on your shoulders. It's knit from the top down, and it stays on your shoulders really well. It's not a shawl you're going to wear like like one of those kerchief type of, like this. It's not going to be like a kerchief type of shawl, but it stays put. It's like sometimes the triangular and the asymmetrical, I'm constantly adjusting it on my shoulders. These stay in place. So that would be my favorite one. And that's also the oldest. Somebody else asked, what's the oldest yarn I have in my stash? It's that yarn. That's because I had tons of it. I don't know why, but I've got tons of that yarn. And I've still got a bunch of it left. So, yeah. And it will not become dishcloths. I'm done with the dishcloths, so it's not going to be that. When I go into a yarn store, do I choose yarn quickly or is it difficult? It depends on the store. If it's like a totally stuffed store and they've got lots of things I'm looking for, but a lot of the places I went into when I said I was looking for specific, I know ahead of time what I'm looking for. As far as I knew I wanted like Sweet Georgia, I wanted hedgehog fiber, so I knew ahead of time which stores carried that, and when I walked in, that's what I was looking for. Because it wasn't carried in every store, and there was none of the stores in the area where I live had it. Let's see. Do I have a large stash, and how do I store it? I have like a medium size. It's nothing. It's not huge or anything like the Yarn Hoarder. If you watch her podcast, it's nowhere near anything like that. If you know this little like those IKEA shelves that are kind of square, that like little cubes shelvings. I could put all of my yarn in like 4 or 5 of those. Just in, these little cubbies. I could put all of it into that. If you would like me to do the dog heard food again, she just popped up. If you would like me to do a craft room tour, I've done one before, but that was with my other camera. So if you'd like me to do a craft room tour and a tour of my stash, give me a thumbs up at the end of the video. And I will try to do that in the near future. Let's see. Do I crochet? Sorta. Just a little. I mean, I don't do huge amounts of crochet. I have a hard time keeping one side straight. The other side tends to go wow, 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 wow. I don't know why. I struggle with it. Do I have any experience with Tunisian crochet? Yes, I do. I have a whole set of crochet hooks that are Tunisian crochet hooks. I've made a kind of like a poncho with the basic Tunisian crochet hook pattern thing, and I made a lacy, like a stole. I also developed tendinitis doing Tunisian crochet. I think it was because the yarn I was using was a raw silk, and it just didn't glide real easy on the hooks because the hooks I was using were wood, and it didn't slide. There was a lot of drag, and I think from pulling, like pulling the stitches through, it created tendinitis like right at the base of my thumb. So yes, I have done some Tunisian crochet, and in fact I have a book with a DVD to learn how to do more. I just haven't gotten back into it. I've been afraid of developing tendinitis again. Let's see. What is my favorite item to crochet? Probably, like I said, granny squares and putting them together in a blanket or something. I don't do a whole lot of crochet. I mean, I know the stitches, but I don't read patterns real well with the crochet. Do I have a knit night? Yes, my local yarn shop has a knit night on Tuesday nights. So from 7 to 9 o'clock. So I go there most every Tuesday night. There's a couple I miss, but most of the time I'm there. Am I right-handed or left-handed? I am right-handed. And I think that hits the end. That answers all of the questions you guys asked. So, I guess I will see you again next week. See you later. Bye.